Hi, Dr. Rob. He
I'm
makes
just
me laugh and
amusing.
then I hit record. So
Well, that's okay. Laughter is a good place to start. Tell me what
exactly.
you've got to, what have people got to want to know about tonight?
Okay, so our first question, Dr. Rob, is my husband of 15 years is currently at an inpatient center in another location, not ours. He was in SA for 20 years. I married him knowing he had suffered from compulsive sexual behavior. He admitted to relapsing with porn in March. He started seeing a CSAT, and over the course of the next 3 months, they decided it was best for him to go inpatient. 2 days before he left, he admitted he had been acting out with other people. My question is, should I attend family week of the program if looks like, oh wait, hang on. If also, if you have time, is it ethical for a CSAT to have discouraged my husband to inform me of the general scope of betrayal, not a full disclosure? So, I mean, to
That's a
me,
mixed,
it really is. So let's start with, I mean, we have a family specialist that works with clients who are in a residential program. This feels very much like you should talk to them about what they recommend. I don't feel comfortable, talking about another like we know what we do. We know we do it with expertise. I mean, I'm going to put a shameless plug in. There is no more expert treatment. We've had many people who have been through that other program and every other program that come to us. And we have a family specialist. What we do is very specific, so I really think you need to lean into their family specialist that works with you. They know your husband. So do you have other thoughts on that
well,
aspect?
I also, Tammy, want to be respectful of other organizations and everyone gets what they get, I can't say what's right for one person may be right for someone else, but I certainly do, feel good about the work we do. Um, my only issue with some programs that do Family Week is that they use a lot of codependency language. And I
And this
find
one
that to
does, I
be,
know. Yeah.
well, I can't speak to that again. I don't want to speak of other programs, particularly, but I can speak about ours. But
Hmm.
um, but I always worry about codependency focused programs. I mean, because spouses get blamed. What is your part? How did you contribute this? What have you worked on yourself? Have you looked at how your history has something to do with this? I just I don't look at the world that way. I think that we stay with the people we stay with because we love them. And we tolerate a lot of the things that we tolerate because we love them. And even if they're not perfect or dysfunctional, we don't do it right. Hey, not everyone went to college or high school studying addiction. So the idea or concept that for some reason a spouse is in any way responsible for your husband or wife seeing 20 sex workers and spending $3,000 on sugar babies or sugar daddies. I mean, I just find that hard to, I don't believe in that. And I think the field is beginning to change. And one of the important things that Tam and I believe in is this idea of pro-dependence, where we respect and trust the value of a spouse and see you as being a very strong person to have stayed in such a difficult situation and hoped. And I really see spouses and partners not as having their own issues so much. I mean, we all have our own issues, but in this case, I see spouses and partners as holding out the hope for who we could be. And you guys are the bright light that says, I think I know who this person is underneath all that crap. And I am, praying and connected to that. And I'm going to keep working for that. So my big concern would be more for you, which is, are your needs going to get met in a way that you don't feel blamed or shamed or in any way that this is your part? And I have seen people, spouses who feel like they've done their best and they have committed and they have tried and they have good reason for having to stay. And they certainly question themselves. My job, I think, under pro-dependence, which is what we believe in, is to validate the spouses for their strength of love and connection. And so I don't know the platform that other programs use, but a pro-dependence has been one that I think spouses have felt comfortable with. And to be honest, the whole concept of pro-dependence came out of working with spouses of sex addicts, because the idea that any of you could leave any of us choosing to see 100 people, I mean, there's nothing you would ever do that would leave me looking at porn 4 hours a day. There's just nothing that you could do or nothing about you or I also believe that if people have issues, they will tend to act them out when they're in a crisis. So if you don't see me at my best when someone I love is drinking or using or sexing, it's because I'm not at my best. And that doesn't mean that my issues have to be addressed. So bottom line is, I think it's very important to you for you to feel strong enough within yourself to say, I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'd love to interact with my spouse, but I really want to avoid any focus on my problems, my issues, and what I haven't done right. And, I have had people walk out of programs because they felt blamed and shamed. So the other half of it, I think I can't speak to very well because I think most treatment programs have this view in our world, which we do not do disclosure as a part of treatment. It is not, most of the time, if our spouses don't come out because we don't believe that in the very beginning the focus is on you, sort of the things I was talking about. But we make sure you have support, you have a family specialist, but we don't really want to focus on your issues, so to speak. Um, but in the work that we do, and any of the work that I've done, I don't believe that this time is a time to do a disclosure. We don't know.
So
Discourages
I'm
me.
going to back
Oh,
it.
okay.
It's the
Sorry.
C. So the question is, was it
Yeah, I'm not
ethical for his CSAT to
to
discourage my husband
discourage
to
him.
inform me of the general scope of his betrayal, not a full disclosure? So
I think that's up to the program. If you
the
said to
C, no,
me,
this is
well,
the CSAT before the treatment. So this is
or again, individual program, whatever it is,
okay.
if I someone in our program and I think the spouses usually have a pretty good clue. But if they're absolutely clueless, I would not say anything. I would ask the client to say, I'd like you to tell your spouses a few things about what's gone on. And he needs to hear that, and he needs to give you a sense of what's happened. And I don't think it's a disclosure to say, well, I've had a couple of affairs and I've been casually sexual with a number of people, because you do need to have a sense of what's going on. The only issue is that questions of yours will bring up more questions, and it is not the time or the place to answer them. Let me tell you why we wait to do disclosure. Number one, a lot of the spouses in programs like this in particular, you're staying at a hotel. And why would we, or with a CSAT, it's a process. We work with them, we work with you, we create a safe space for the couple. We go through them, all of their history and everything they've done. We make sure you spouses have a lot of support and ability to plan even what are you going to do after. So yeah, I mean, so back to all of that. I don't think any of this is unethical. I mean, unethical would be something much more serious. But I do think that for me, I would want you to know in general what's gone on. And then I would say, absolutely, the specifics are to be done when you're both, home and in a safe place and have the right kind of support. So one more time, I wouldn't say it's unethical. It's not how I would work. I think you have a right to know at least the general idea of what's gone on. However, I will tell you that questions bring up more questions. And the minute you know a few things, you want to know 100. And that's when the boundary does need to be set. This is all I'm going to talk about. This is all because I don't want to overwhelm you right now. And when we're both ready, we will work on this. So I don't know, Tammy, if that's how you'd answer it. But
Well, the only I would tag on to what you're saying, because if there has been acting out with another person, then for your safety, I'm sorry,
well,
STD
that for
testing.
sure.
Yeah. And if you're perceiving that it's, and I don't want to say just porn, but it's non-physical contact, you would not be concerned about getting an STD test, where if someone is acting out with other people, you absolutely should be concerned about that. But I really wanted to touch on the to have the CSAT discourage my husband. Unless you heard the CSAT say that, I would be
That's true.
reticent to blame the CSAT. Addicts lie. I mean, addicts lie a lot,
No,
So yeah, and minimize. And it would be really easy for an addict to go, oh, my CSAT, told me
my
not to tell
therapist said,
you.
mm-mm, right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would be suspicious of
Hmm.
what the actual message was. That I believe what your husband heard. I'm just not sure that's the words that were said. So I would be skeptical about that. But the biggest thing to me would be your safety and making, like, having some information that that you should go get. You should consider going and getting STD tested. That to me would be the one piece of it that I would want to know. to take care of me as my, and my for my safety. So,
And I have a slightly different take, Tammy, and I rarely like
okay.
to disagree with you, but I've had a lot of addicts say it's just porn. And then you find out it's more. So for me, I would just get STD tested, or STI, I believe
Oh,
what they're
great
called now,
idea. Yeah.
no
Like just,
matter
yeah.
what, because I want
Yeah.
you to feel safe. And this is one of those situations where we will say, as a treatment center or a therapist, he or she's been acting out, in public or with strangers or in unsafe ways. And even if we say we're safe, I had a client just someone I was speaking to us the other day said, well, I got tested for HIV every other week or every other month. And I'm thinking, well, what about chlamydia and HPV and all the other things or I can't get anything from oral sex? Well, actually you can. So that is a big concern always, for me. I agree with Tammy and I also agree that we lie. And if there's something that I didn't want you to know, I would say, you know what my therapist said, because, I'm used to lying and I don't want you to, and I'm used to controlling our relationship. And so if I don't want to talk about it, I'll just say, so, yeah, it might be something to question the therapist about rather than, and I know you need a release and all that, rather than just taking the addict's word at face value, because we tend to say things, we want them to work out as we want them to work out. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate you clarifying on that. I often tell betrayed partners, because they'll say, he says it's just been porn, and I'm going like, please, for your safety, just go get STD tested. It's like just do that. So that was a very good interjection on that as well. So, okay, so next question, Dr. Rob. As a betrayed partner, I am struggling to find a balance between my need for learning about sex addiction through books, webinars such as this, support groups, etc., with feeling overwhelmed and triggered by the content, and feeling empathy burnout from listening to all the stories of other betrayed partners. Please offer any suggestions or advice in finding this balance. That's a great question.
Well, I don't know what Tammy's response to me. For me, it's balance has to do with how do I take care of myself. First of all, it's knowing what I can handle. And just because I want to learn more about this or I want to know everything doesn't mean that I have to go to every group and every experience and read every book. That's not required. What is required is you get a group of resource people together. Some people, you have their email addresses, you could do some reaching out. And I would pick one or two groups that I really like. But I know as partners, it's a research project, and I understand this. You're trying to figure out what happened to your life, and you will read every book. There's no better graduate student than the spouse of a sex addict. You will read every book. Well, not just a sex addict. If you have cancer, I would want to know everything about cancer. So you would read every book, you'd listen to every podcast. It's just that you can get overwhelmed. And besides, the situation is overwhelming enough on its own. So number one, I think you should pace yourself. The other thing, and you should trust your overwhelm. The other thing is, what are you doing to enjoy your life? Are you doing any activities with friends? Are you taking a weekend to go away? Are you getting your nails done? Are you taking a day off and walking on the beach or in the mountains? I just think it's really, really important that when we're in crisis, we take time for ourselves. And by the way, if being with a sex addict, it's not like you've gotten a lot of attention and support to begin with. So it's really hard to not focus on the problem. And at the same time, we get overwhelmed by the problem. So to me, it's about balance. And you might check that out with someone else. Talk to a friend, talk to one of these other partners. What are they doing? How are they finding balance? What do they get overwhelmed? I bet if you went to one of those groups and said, hey, I'm getting overwhelmed, you'd find half the crowd would say, me too. Yeah, balance to me is making sure you do have something on the fun, relaxing, distracting end. And it's also, not having to know everything and learn everything that you can every single day. So Tammy,
Yeah,
anything else?
I agree with that. And yes, when the addiction and the problem has taken over every aspect of everything, I I often encourage partners, go have lunch with a girlfriend and not talk about this. Like, not talk about this. Go get your nails done. Go do something
Or a
that feeds
boyfriend.
your soul. Yeah. A friend that is not of this world, and and like have it be a
Right.
boundary with yourself that I'm not going to talk about this. I'm having a rough time and I'm putting that on pause, and I just want to have fun, go to a funny movie. I don't know, but figure out some things. Yeah. So Debbie Allen did a 3-circle plan for betrayed
You have to tell
partners.
them who Debbie Allen is,
I
Tammy.
will. I
Sometimes.
will.
Okay.
So
I'll make
Debbie
sure.
Allen does a betrayed partner. She co-hosts the betrayed partner drop-in group on Wednesdays, and she guested on the Wednesday morning series, and she did a she showed a 3-circle plan for partners. And I love that idea of like, what's in your healthy circle. And if you're all focused on the addiction and the problem and the addict, like Dr. Rob said, you're not living your life. And yes, you want to know more. I get it. But it's also, this is a lifelong condition. This is a chronic condition. You don't have to learn it all this week. You will learn more and more will be revealed. And I think when you're overwhelmed, you can't even take in more. So it's kind of pointless. It's like trying to cram for an exam at the last minute. You can't take it all in. So just, letting things settle, getting some perspective on things, talking to other betrayed partners about that feeling, talking to your qualified professional. I'm feeling overwhelmed. If there's some trauma that's coming up for you, some body work might be, helpful. So there are some techniques that you can do, but you just taking a mental health break, that you can take a day off or 2 days off or whatever it is you need, and not have this be the focus of your life, would be, I think, a real gift to yourself. So
I want to add, and I want to give an example. I spent time, Tammy knows some of my family this weekend, and one of our family members is very addicted and really struggling and went through treatment. She's the sister of the woman I was spending time with, and she's just not doing well. She kind of disappeared. And we said to each other, it's really troubling situation. It's very hard on us. And we're not going to talk about it tonight. We're going to see fireworks, we're going to have a meal. Let's just agree to not to just enjoy each other. And it wasn't that hard to just put away. It's like a boundary. This is what I can handle and I know it. And so I'm not going to go there right now. As best you have to protect yourself. So there are
yes.
lots of questions. I'm going to stop on that one.
Yes. Okay. I'm a betrayed partner with an SA husband. Been with my partner since 16. So I assume that's age 16. He is all I've known. We are now 28, and turns out he was faking recovery for 2 years. I'm not sure what I want to do, but he's done everything with other people, and I don't feel anything to him after the second D-Day. What's your thoughts or experience with couples being separated or dating others? I'm not sure I want to keep pausing my life and experiences while he's been doing what he wants for 12 years.
Well, I'm really, really sorry. And when I encounter spouses, partners, and by the way, I do want to respect that there are male partners here, there are male female, or couples. And if we don't use the right gender all the time, or trans folks, we're just kind of plowing through. So I just want to say we are respectful and open to whomever needs the help, and that's just the way it is. But I do want to say that one of the things I'm very sensitive to is a partner who's been with someone since they were 15 or 17 or 20, because you don't necessarily have the relationship experience. You were with them and now you're 28, that's 12 years or whatever it is. You didn't have 3 relationships where you got to know someone else, and what is a relationship like, and what is trust like, and what is love like. And I find a lot of partners who started out really young, they kind of adapt. This is just the way a relationship is, and this is just how it's supposed to be. And I guess and it's not till later they realize that actually it's not just the acting out, that they've had someone who's been emotionally unavailable for a long time. So I would not trust my immediate feelings. I don't know how long this has been going on, and I don't know when you found out, and what you're talking about with multiple disclosures. And every couple goes through those things. I can't tell you whether you love this person enough to stay. I can tell you that I don't think seeing someone else at the same time is a good idea. I always think it's important to finish what you started. And plus, if you start with someone else, and I say this to the men a lot, you'll never really feel good about ending the relationship, because you'll never really know if you did it cleanly. So I think you have to stick it out and make a decision that you want to go in one direction or another, and you can certainly get a lot of support. And I don't want to see anger. Screw them. I'm going to go out and have sex with other people, and I don't think that's good for anybody. Um, separate. Great, you want to separate, but focus on being on your own. I also want to say that someone who's been with someone since they were 16, you haven't spent much time by yourself. And rather than racing to the next relationship, how wonderful it would be for you to spend a year getting to know yourself, doing hobbies, making new friends, spending time on you. And if you've been with an addict, we do take up a lot of space in your life. So the last thing I want to say is, and Tammy's heard me say this before, it's often the young couples that will say, I don't know that I want to continue. You know, a woman, I believe this is a woman, not sure, your age, you know, you haven't been with him 35 years. You don't have 3 kids. You haven't owned 2 homes. You haven't, you know, worked together. I mean, you don't have that whole history. Everyone doesn't think of you as a family with kids in a home. And so if you're going to get out, you know, I think it's a lot, in my experience, it's a lot easier to make that decision at this point in your life than 10 or 15 years from now when you have so much more tying you together. Last thing is, I think only you can know the answer to this question, but there is a difference between being so angry that I just want to run away, or being so sad and really not loving someone anymore. And I'm not saying that we don't love people the rest of our lives. I mean, I love the people I've loved, whether I'm with them or not. But you know, if you're in love with them, you know if there's some kind of deep, enduring connection that you want to hold on to and live with. And because we're more than sex addicts, we're people that you've made good choices about, and there are good parts of us, and it isn't all muck. So it's kind of like weighing the good and the bad, and trusting and not doing anything right in the moment. I do think boundaries are really important. It may be, I don't think we can live together for a while, and I need some space for 6 months, and you need to get a place to live. It might be, I don't want you in my bed. I want you to be another part of the house. And, I'm going to be out a couple of evenings. I don't know. Boundaries are so that you can feel safe, but they're also so you can have some time to sit back and say, where is my life and what do I want? And, no one can do that for you. But the one thing I would not recommend is making things even more muddy and confusing by bringing someone else in. And it's not really fair to them to bring somebody new into a situation where you've got all this mess going on. I mean, they should be able to walk into a relationship where the other person has a clean slate as well. So, yeah, Tammy,
Yeah,
anything else?
I really agree. Yeah, it's like, first of all, a couple of things. You said he's been doing what he wants for 12 years, and it feels like that. And first of all, he was probably doing it long before there, where he was compartmentalizing. Typically, the underlying issues, the acting out is a maladaptive coping mechanism. It's a reason, not an excuse. But so this preceded you, even though you guys got together at a really young age. So, and doing what he wants, again, he's doing the coping mechanism that he knows. What I don't hear, because you've had discoveries, but I don't hear, and he's been working with a qualified professional, and he's been doing, some program, he's, 12 step, and, he's done our work groups. I don't hear anything other than you've had discoveries. And so if neither of you have had professional help, I can't recommend that, that strongly enough. Dr. Rob does expert consultations with people, and he really helps them. And I'm not saying you need this, but you could. He's
Excuse
really
me.
good at helping identify the issues that a couple is struggling with and giving them guidance for moving forward. Many couples find it validating. Many partners find it, validating and hopeful. And some partners go, I can see that this path, this person is not willing or able to step into a recovery place, and I'm not willing to. So there's no script for these. These are organic. We never know what's going to happen, but they can be really helpful in identifying what's going on for the two of you right now. But I really concur with Dr. Rob. You have never been on your own, so for you to jump from this relationship in a mess and into the next one, I'm going to just say, you don't know who you are outside of a relationship, outside of a family situation. So
Hmm.
figuring out who you are and what you really want, can be
And
very
need.
empowering. Yeah, yes. And
Hmm.
need is, that's a great, it's very empowering, but it's also clarifying, so that if you move to another relationship, and I don't know what will happen, I hope and pray he gets help and, chooses recovery, because we help guys all the time, be on that path. And we hear life changing, not just from the addicts, but from the partners. That's meaningful, that they see a different, they're on a different path. They're living in honesty. They're living in integrity if they choose it, but for you to go from one chaotic situation to another, my concern for you would be that, in a reactionary mode, you will find yourself in another chaotic situation. Maybe not with someone struggling with sex addiction, but not an optimal situation of like, this is a person that I've chosen, this is a path that I've chosen. It would be out of that reactionary move. So
And two things, Tammy, just to
mhm,
reinforce. This person said, he's all I've known. And I think
mhm,
that's very, very telling to our point. Also, you didn't mention you have children. And if you have children, I do think that's a whole other set of considerations. And because if this person does work on it, if they do go to treatment or they can become the person, the father that you, or, wife that you might want them to be, or husband. Um, we're not just that. So
mhm.
lots of things to consider. I think you're asking the right questions, but I would say slow down, get the right kind of support, and maybe focus on setting a different kind of boundary, like go live somewhere else for a few months.
Well, and to
Why don't we
tag
keep
on to what
going?
you're saying, if you do have children, you will always co-parent. You will always co-parent. And I tell people, and this is shocking at age 28, but at some point you would co-grandparent, so looking at, this as, it really, there's a lifelong involvement with that person if there are children involved. If there's no children, then obviously, if you choose not to continue the relationship, you can part ways without that. But that's always a consideration, because I think it's easy, or easier to go, if I just get rid of him, then I'm going to get rid of the problem. And there's so much grief
Mm,
work for partners to do, regardless of whether
mhm.
they're in the relationship or not. And I'm going
Sure.
to put a plug in, Dr. Rob. We started a new drop-in group last week, Thursday, called Moving On Alone. And it's for betrayed partners who have left the relationship, or were left, they were left, or are they really considering, they've got, probably 1.5 feet out the door, so that's a new drop-in group specifically for that
One and a
population to help
half.
them support them. Well, yeah, I mean, it's like they
I
haven't
don't want to
quite
split my
decided.
feet.
uh,
Hey, Tammy, I have a question.
mhm.
Whoever's doing, and by the way, these groups are free. So drop-in group means that we have therapists who are willing to volunteer and moderate them. I think we have 14 or more, 15. So you're always welcome to come to those if you have, and the podcast, Sex, Love, and Addiction doesn't cost anything. We try to give as much away as we can. But Tammy, just a note for you and me. I think that would be a great podcast. I don't think we've ever done one on
I,
people who've chosen to leave a relationship.
Right, and it was an interesting, it's a whole nother story, and it could be on the podcast of
Hmm.
how that topic came about. So, but yeah, but like, we had a willing facilitator and put
Yeah,
it together
love to
pretty
do something
quickly.
with
So
them.
yeah. Okay,
Hmm.
next question, Dr. Rob. I'm the addict, clean for 5 years, and I still have a problem being congruent, and still get angry when
That means they
truth is
lie.
right, and still get angry when truth is told to me by my wife. What is the problem with me? My family is suffering, and I need to change, and I want this to stop.
Well, I don't want to say a nasty word, but I'll say it this way because I don't know what age people are, I don't know what the beliefs are, but stop effing lying. I don't think that's so hard to do. Just stop lying because you'll be much less defensive and feel much better about yourself and be able to tolerate the challenges. If your spouse isn't right or isn't, every time you get caught, the more upset they get, the more angry they get, the more demanding they get, as they should. And so you're not helping the situation any. I do think I wrote a book called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating, which is a subtitle. It's way too long, by the way. Um, Out of the Doghouse is a book about
Whose
how to
fault is
develop empathy.
that?
Mine. I wanted to say everything. Let's see what else. We could call it Out of the Doghouse. How to save your relationship if you've been cheating, or how. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a book
it
for
it
men
doesn't
who
matter.
understand
It's
the
a good book.
responsibility that they need. It's my best-selling book. Out of the Doghouse is a book about how a man can learn to have empathy for a woman that he has cheated on. I specifically wrote it for those populations, for many, many reasons. And I think that this will help you. And we teach a course called Out of the Doghouse with a matching workbook and all of that, because it is such an important issue to understand what empathy looks like and what it means to put down. We have a saying in work, to fall on your sword, to say, you know what, you're right. I didn't tell the truth about that, or yeah, I did do that, or even say, I hate it when you challenge me. It's really hard for me. This being reactive part is making your family suffer. But I don't know, maybe I don't understand this correctly, but when people get into fancy words like I still have a problem being congruent, to me that means I lie or I minimize or I tell partial truths or and yeah, why wouldn't you get angry when someone pokes at that thing that you already feel shameful and badly about? What I appreciate though is that you understand and you say and you see that this is hurting the people you love. My family is suffering and they need to see a change and I want this to stop. But it isn't a this, it's you. So what are you doing to become a better person? And if you're very, very reactive for no reason at all, that's a great therapy issue. That's a great 12-step issue. It's the kind of thing you can't work out on your own. And I don't know what else you're doing to get support. I would love to see, or with your spouse, this is a couples therapy issue. You say this and I get like that, and how do I handle this? And how do you do that? That is a reason to go to couples therapy. But to be honest, bottom line is if you're still being untruthful, you're not going to get anywhere with this issue. Because you're going to surround yourself you're going to be defensive. Leave me alone. I don't want to hear about, because inside of you what's going on. So
I have a couple
that's
of
me.
practical things. First of all, if you've been around program, then you would know about the 24-hour rule. And instead of having your wife have to confront you on something, you can bring it to her. If like, let's just assume that you're going to struggle with being congruent, right off the bat. So, but if you are bringing it to her instead of her bringing it to you, that will shift things. So another thing, Troy Love talks often about like the politician and the judge. I would invite you to, what is your benefit in lying? Like what is it serving? It has to be serving a purpose for you. And if it's like, I'm afraid of her reaction, I'm whatever, I don't know what it is. So that's a great therapy item. But Troy Love does an attachment wound work group. It's posted in that same link that I put in the chat as Out of the Doghouse. Both of them would be great, for you. But to me, there's some benefit for you lying. You want to look good. You don't want her. You're afraid of her. There's something going on, and you identifying that and being able to have integrity and accountability about that. If you're in the program, the 10th step is we do a daily inventory, and if we have to do it 3 times a day, we can do that. We can have a calendar reminder on our and I wasn't truthful, and what was the benefit to me, and why did I do that, and how do I go clean it up? So being clean to me is abstinent, and so I'm a little worried about that you've been abstinent, but doing the recovery work, that's where we peel off those layers and we get to that deeper stuff so that we can show up, and I often use it. I want to be congruent. I don't want to be lying. I want to have integrity. I want to be honest. And I work really hard at being able to do that. But it is taking that inventory of myself and admitting when I'm wrong. So, okay, ready for the next one? My spouse had an email on his phone from a hookup app asking him to verify his profile. He said he clicked on it out of curiosity, but when they asked for his info, he backed out of it. While on a trip to another state, he got a text message from someone. I asked him who it was, and he said he had no idea. I investigated the number, and it was from someone that lived less than 40 miles away. He said he never gave his phone number out on the hookup site. Is that possible? The bigger issue is it was a man, and when I checked into him, he was on a swinger, and it's all kinds of stuff. My safety being at risk worries me, but my spouse thinks that I'm overreacting because he is saying he didn't give his info out to anyone on the hookup site.
And what is the question, Tammy? Is there a question there somewhere?
Because she said I think it's she, but
Or
said,
she,
is this
right.
even possible? That it was in there. He says it, but
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yeah, exactly. That's just go with that, Dr. Rob.
Yeah, I think that you know, you spouses may not be right every single time, But when you see stuff like this, I would not question yourselves. And we're going to do everything we can to back up. And, what a great thing to say, gosh, I don't even know. I mean, that's just not true. So, as much as now, even if it is true, if they're lying, they were lying last week, or they're going to lie that next week. And so, the smaller issues are not important. Which one to me as the larger issue, which is, yeah, and as far as it being a man or a woman, I don't know what they're into, and I work with lots of men who are having sex with couples and other situations. I don't know what's going on with him or what it means. You should worry about your safety. You should worry about your safety at risk and all of that. And you were certainly not overreacting. You can say, I don't trust you, and therefore I'm going to take care of myself. And I really, I hope that you didn't do those things. And it would make me happy if you didn't, but I'm going to get tested and we don't get to have sex unless you do too, or we have safe sex. I think that's a really good message, which is not this, it's a reality, which is, I don't know what you've been doing and I don't know if it's true or care of me. I think that's really important. So yes, I would worry about my safety too. Um, yeah, Tammy, anything else?
No,
There's lots of questions tonight.
yeah,
So
no, yeah, right. And I'm going liar, liar, pants on fire. Yeah. Oh no, I didn't give out my phone. Yeah, it wasn't just a spam call. It was, yeah, and if 40 miles away, oh, there's a geolocator. So okay, the first one was, my question is, do I go to family week if he hasn't disclosed? And I read Prodependence and loved it. So but the disclosure, like Dr. Rob already answered that, disclosure isn't part of treatment. So so I think we'll move on. Okay, I told my partner I need him to understand my trauma. There was one time when he was in the middle of an active porn addiction. I left my phone out on the coffee table with naked men on it because I wanted him to see what it felt like for me. So this is the betrayed partner did this. So this
oh,
incident has happened in the
revenge.
past. Right. I feel like he's using it to make me feel as though I created a bunch of trauma in him. So I need to acknowledge his feelings and validate him as well. Basically, I shouldn't be getting all of the attention with this healing when I did the same thing to him. Of course, it was wrong of me to be spiteful, but I didn't replace him sexually. I didn't break him to the core, nor did I betray him. I just don't think that's fair for him to compare those things. He says it may be petty to me, but it's a big deal to him. I don't want to invalidate his feelings, but I also feel like it's kind of petty. He finds things from the past and accuses me of traumatizing him.
Well, I think there's two pieces to that, which one of which is I would not. It's interesting. I was thinking the word, if I replace the word spiteful with the word unproductive, you know, um, whatever reason you did it, out of spite, out of anger, to prove something, to get a reaction. The truth is, it's not helpful. And I'm always looking at what will be the most effective way to communicate what I'm feeling or to make things better. And, you gave him fodder to throw stuff back at you. But the reality is that we are always as addicts looking for ways to say, well, look what you did that made me do this, or you're so mean to me when and that is what codependence is all about, really, is that no one can make an addict do anything. You can make me miserable, you can be spiteful, you can show me pictures of all the people you're dating, and I can go for a walk, or I can divorce you, or I can, the logical solution for me is to go have a sex with other people is my choice. And so, the solution to blaming you, or the solution to managing my acting out and making it okay is by blaming you. I mean, in some ways, that's what codependence is all about. So it's not petty. You took an action that wasn't particularly useful. And I think it's because you didn't feel heard. You don't feel validated. You don't feel understood. You don't feel like you have people do stuff like this because they feel like they're in a trap, they're in a corner, and they've got to do something. It doesn't make you a bad person. To me, it makes you feel completely powerless and you don't know what to do. And I would pay more attention to that, which is, how is this leaving me feeling? And why am I in a place where I want to throw darts, which I don't feel good about and that are only going to get thrown back at me? What is productive? And, you're very angry. How were you using that anger in a way that is useful for you? Maybe this person should not live with you. Maybe this person should go stay with their cousin or whatever. Maybe you need to not be around as much. I don't know what it will take for you to find peace, but there's a lot of focus on him. And, it doesn't sound like he's being particularly honest. So I would watch myself. Oh, one more thing. It's not just about being unproductive. You don't want to do anything that's going to make you feel bad about yourself. You know, um, when you partners start throwing ashtrays and breaking things and screaming at us, and I heard a lot of partners who hit us, um, I've seen guys come in with bruises, that's not just only unproductive, it leaves you and hurtful and not right, but it leaves you feeling awful about yourself, and this is not a situation where you want to feel responsible for somebody else's behavior or for pushing them to it or for being, in the wrong. So, for both reasons, I don't want to feel ashamed. I don't want to have any reason why I feel badly about myself. And I don't want to be in a situation to to feed my addict partner reasons to blame me. Um, I do encourage you, and I didn't see this, that you're going to some of the support groups. We have a course that we teach for betrayed partners. I think rather than sort of taking it out on a relationship that is clearly not working at the moment, I would do my best to educate myself, to get support for myself, to obviously there's too much focus for you on this and you're treading water. So where else can you go to feed and nurture yourself and learn rather than looking to this person who's not in recovery to somehow give you something that they're not able to give? It's my
That's
two
where I was
cents.
going with that too, is like this person is not able to give you any empathy for your trauma. That is, they are clearly still in active addiction. If they're not acting out, they may not be doing the acting out, but they are not in any kind of recovery. And I agree with Dr. Rob. I hear often from partners of like, I've turned into someone who I never thought I would be, and that,
Mhm.
all of those things. And so what do you need to take care of you? So I was going with the healthy boundaries, and it's about physical. So Dr. Rob mentioned, do you need to have, do you need to be in a different place? Does he need to be in a different place, or whatever you need, physical boundaries. It's for your safety. It's not punitive. It's not against him. It's like, for my safety, I need my physical safety, financial safety, emotional safety, and spiritual safety. I need, these boundaries are for me because I'm the only one that can take care of me. He will not be. I mean, we as addicts are really good at pushing away any uncomfortable feeling and understanding your trauma. I don't want to understand my trauma. So your trauma, like, I can't even go there until I'm able to get the tools and the support to do so. So we do have betrayed partner work group. I put the link for the work groups in the chat, and that has all of them, including the betrayed partner that starts again in August. And we talk about healthy boundaries, but we've got, webinars and drop-in groups, and the drop-in
And the
groups for tomorrow are
podcast.
all canceled. But yeah, podcast. We've got so many support resources. And one more thing: when a couple is stuck like this, and I mentioned a little while ago, so I don't want to repeat myself, but I do. Dr. Rob does a one-time 2-hour expert consultation, and he's really good when it's new in discovery and you're going, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed, I don't even know where to turn. Great time. Or when a couple's been floundering, like you guys, you from what you're sharing sound like you're stuck, and so he's able to help identify the issues. And one time he said, I feel like a radiologist, where I'm like looking at the x-ray and I'm seeing this person needs a cast, this person needs a sling, this person needs just ibuprofen and PT, whatever it is. But I think he is, I'm tooting your horn for you, but I think he is uniquely qualified
Right.
to help people have a path forward, that you don't have to do it alone. This is, I often say, if you're going to a regular therapist, it's like going to a GP when you need a cancer specialist. This is intense stuff. This is, most therapists are not trained to do this work. This is not do it yourself stuff. Like, getting support and resources is how you can heal regardless of what he does or doesn't do.
Hey, Tamara, I just want to say one thing about consultations, which is they're
Hmm.
not for everybody. And the reason
Right.
they're not for everybody is I'm very direct, I'm very clear, I don't pull punches. And, some couples, they're not particularly happy about that. And I recently had a spouse who, and this happens a lot actually, I was really hard on the addict and I really talked to them about what I saw. And then the spouse kind of came back and said, well, you're being really mean to him. And so, if you were feeling like it's hard to stand your ground and be in a place that feels safe to you, it's not a good time to do it. Or if your partner's going to be so defensive and, uh, I've had addicts walk out, So, but I do think I'm pretty good at giving people the truth, whether they want to hear it or not. And that seems to be a skill set that didn't used to work for me when I was younger, but it seems to work for me now.
Yeah, well,
Anyway, thanks, Tammy.
and it isn't all, lollipops and gumdrops. I mean, there are spouses that we,
You calm down.
we've had two in the last few months where, like they had clarity, which I think is a gift in itself, of like, this person is not going to step into recovery, and, and they knew that it was going to be up to them to make the choice to leave. So, but I think it's also empowering to go, okay, now I understand. Because, if you're sitting there going, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, to have that, to have that clarity. I talked to betrayed partner. I talk to lots of people a lot, but when betrayed partners are like, I don't know if I should stay or go, and I'm always saying, stay. Like, if your head is telling you to go and your heart is telling you to stay, until your head and your heart are aligned, it's like you don't need to make a decision. Just take in more data. But like, I see it often. As soon as the head and heart get aligned, there's a decision. Or ideally, the addict's getting the help that they need, so that people are like, oh my goodness, I can have hope that this person can be different and we can have a future together. That's always obviously our goal. So
Do you mind if I add just one little thing, which is,
please.
um, I think it's really important to have written out of the doghouse to give men a clue about how to heal relationships with women when they've cheated. I think it's essential. And I'm not just talking about sex addicts. I think it's men in general don't have a clue what a woman is going through when she's been betrayed. It's just, we're all candy and flowers. Please forgive me. Um, but but one of the things that really frustrates me is when an addict reads that book first, takes that course first. It tells me that they're not really motivated to learn about their own problem, that their goal is to be forgiven or to smooth things over. If you're an addict, you need to take a 101. You need to take a sex addiction 101 or a porn addiction 101, or start taking actions to focus on the problem. Because I've seen all too many addicts, our goal is to just make it all better and make them feel better. And maybe I can learn how to make them feel better. And then it's just a big lie. So I really discourage people from reading and looking at that piece unless they're ready to take full responsibility and be accountable for their own behavior. I just want to put that out there because it can be an excuse. Well, I read that book, I took that course. Yeah, you learned how to look like someone who feels bad, but you didn't actually look at your own problem, and that happens more than I would like, Tammy. Right?
It does. Yes. And I I hear often that people start with doghouse and all of a sudden they're in sex addiction 101 part 1 or porn addiction 101 part 1, because they go, oh, I actually have a problem. So we'll help you navigate it. If you've got questions, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com will help you figure out what the right spot for you is. So okay, the next question, Dr. Rob, is I am a betrayed partner attending this webinar along with my porn addicted husband. I tend to intellectualize and seek out a lot of resources to understand what we're up against. However, he is feeling overwhelmed by all the different resources, books, meetings, etc., and doesn't know how to organize his time and attention. Any tips or advice for this situation?
Why don't you give that one a start? Because you do
I
a lot of reaching
I
out and telling
do.
people.
Yes. So my porn addicted husband, then I would start with PA 101. He'll have a 3-circle plan. This is another one of those. Email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. But yeah, porn addiction 101 would be that's a great foundational component. The drop-in groups, yes, there's a lot of stuff and it's overwhelming, but getting a relapse prevention plan, understanding what porn addiction is and isn't. We talk all the time about non-porn porn. If you're on TikTok and watching tantalizing things, that's a problem too. So it's one of those things where getting help. Another idea, there's 25 or 50-minute support sessions. Scott, who teaches the sex addiction and porn addiction 101, does them, and I know, and Jason too. I do them too, but those two guys are really good at helping the guys work on getting their 3-circle plan, tweaked to the right, point, and helping support them and guide them, with next steps. So, and for you, the betrayed partner, doing all the research and intellectualizing, I get it. On the other hand, at some point, I hope you give yourself the grace and space to go, I've been betrayed and I'm going to have to feel some of this and it's not going to feel great, but you're not alone. And there's betrayed partner. The betrayed partner work group for you would be helpful too. But you know, any peer support, you know, and helping navigate that. But for your porn addicted husband, you know, I highly encourage, you know, start at the beginning, porn addiction 101. And we have on our website too some 12-step resources. I give referrals to qualified professionals. I need to know where you're located. Again, email me, don't call me with those, please. But yeah, like it's always overwhelming. You know, I get it. And I said, nobody gets the owner's manual of like, oh, and then in this year of your relationship, you're going to have this and you're going to just automatically know how to handle all this. No, but you're not, neither of you are alone. And there is, you know, there is help, you know, for each and both of you.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that just briefly by saying that in some ways, I think at the beginning, spouses and partners, as I said, they want to learn everything, they want to understand everything, they want to make sense of what's happening in their lives. I think for us, in some ways, it's more of an action. You know, we can read one book, but what we really need to go is go to support group to see the right therapist, to take on a few things that are active, because you know, we're not necessarily in the resource gathering mode that spouses are. I think you can say, here's a basic book, you know, I read it, it makes sense to me, I really need you to read this to get a sense of this. But what I really need to know is, what are you actively doing? I think for us addicts, it's easier to do than it is to read. Now, and also, you know, part of it is, as a spouse, you want us to do everything. I mean, you want to get the problem better, and you want us to become as aware as we can, as engaged as we can, as involved as you can. But I think one of the challenges for us already is we're all in our heads, and to be around other people and in situations where we begin to understand here. Overwhelm, in my opinion, can also mean that there's a lot going on in here that is
Yeah.
kind of preventing the person from thinking. And so I would wonder, you know, and I see webinars, but is what is this person doing, your spouse? Are they going to meetings? Are they going to therapy? Are they, you know, thinking about going to treatment? I mean, I think a plan of action is much better for an addict than gaining a lot of information. Spouses, you need as much information as you can get, because you want to understand. It's like having a partner with cancer. What the heck is going on, and what cures can I get? And but if you're the person with the cancer, you need to go to treatments, and you need to actually actively do things. And I think in some ways it's the same for us. So the other thing that just came over me, and I just want to say it, is the most, and I don't know anything about your situation, I don't know you at all, but the most common co-occurring issue in mental health that occurs. In other words, an addict is not just a sex addict, is not just acting out with sex, but they have an emotional or mental health issue. You would think it'd be depression or anxiety, but the most common one is attention deficit disorder. And so when you say overwhelmed by all the resources, doesn't know how to organize time and attention, those
That's a
are
good
some of the
call.
things
Yeah.
we look for when we're looking at attention deficit disorder. And I think, Tammy, you've told me it's about 20%, or it's one of the few things, is that right, that we can
I,
correlate?
I think it was close to that. And it's not everybody with ADHD is a sex addict, and not
No.
every sex addict has ADHD, but the correlation that, you know, it'll be interesting the more research that they do.
Right. So, you know, I would certainly suggest, and anyone who can, you know, I think getting an evaluation for, well, in at Seeking Integrity, you know, I would say, and by the way, the guys in treatment are listening, they're here every time that we do this. But I would say a third of the clients, maybe we end up talking to about seeing a psychiatrist, or probably a whole bunch come in on medication, or they're seeing a doctor, or, you know, we have complex issues, early trauma, and, you know, we have brain issues, for sure. My brain don't work right, I can tell you that, for various reasons. I have family members who are alcoholic or mentally ill, and there's a genetic component, or I had a lot of abuse as a child, and that has affected my functioning as an adult. So I always think getting a mental health evaluation is helpful. And if someone's saying, I can't organize this, I get overwhelmed, you know, I put my keys in the refrigerator, you know, stuff like that, you might want to look at that piece as well. We
That's
should
a
keep
great
going, Tam. We're
call.
running out.
Yeah, we've got two more questions, and I just wanted to clarify on the support sessions. When Scott, Jason, or I do those are not there. Nothing we do is therapy. Dr. Rob's expert consultations are not therapy.
We can do
Our
that
support
online.
sessions are not therapy. They're
Right.
online, and so like if I start mine with, this is your support session, how can I support you today? And some people are looking for information, and some people just want someone to listen. I mean, whatever it is, but it's one type of support. It's not, and if you're looking for a qualified professional, that's why I said email me and where you're located, and I'll help you find a CSAT trained therapist, or support person in your area. So
And by
okay.
the way, speaking of that, if you're calling for a support session, please don't expect that Tammy is going to talk to an addict. We have two males who can talk to the
No, I
addicts, and
talk
I'm
to
not
lots of
saying that they
addicts.
shouldn't. I worry that, well, you know what I worry about is they're calling you because you're a woman or whatever that is.
No,
But I would imagine
it's
you
all
don't put
through
up with
this.
that.
No, this is all through the system.
Good.
Trust. And Jason and Scott both work with Betray Partners. And if somebody wants to switch,
Good.
we switch. Yeah, so everybody
Right.
gets a choice on that. And like we have, I will, if you get me and you want Jason or Scott, I'll switch over, and likewise with them. So we handle that deftly, if I do say so myself. Okay.
Definitely.
So next question, Dr. Rob. Dr. Rob, you said you have to grieve the relationship, but I grieved the abusive relationship for over 2 years. I'm still not over it, but still have absolutely no contact. But yesterday I found a bunch of blocked messages from the unfaithful, and I'm so upset. I thought he didn't care. Something inside of me is awakened up, including wanting to reach out and a lot of anxiety. Normally he was very strict, but this message had a different tone, sounded desperate. What should I do or not do? P.S. When I was desperate, when he was abusive, he made me ridiculous and humiliate. I think he ridiculed me and humiliated me.
So there's two things that come up for me. One is, I don't think it's a question you want to answer on your own. I think, and I appreciate your asking here, but this is a long discussion with someone who's walked this walk with you. And I'm sure you haven't done this alone. If you have a therapist, if you have good friends, if you go to one of the support groups, you need to go through not only what these messages are, but you kind of need to be woken up to what's happened. When we get in an emotional state and reading these messages would leave me feeling, oh, but this and that and this and that, we tend to downplay the bad parts. The other thing I wanted to say is that I don't have time to show you now, but there's something called a cycle of abuse, and it has 4 parts to it. And one of the parts is, the hitting, the raging, the abuse. Then there's the making up part, and then there's the raising of tension and things aren't going well, and then there's the abuse and it goes round and round. So, if you say you're in a very abusive relationship, what I hear is the wooing in that part, like it's going to be better and we're going to work on it and I'm really thinking of you, but generally that leads right back to the tension building and then the abuse. So finally, I also think that we can be very seductive, and especially abandonment is not our favorite issue. And if you have done a really good job of setting a boundary, by the way, you set that for a reason. You haven't talked to this person for a long time for a reason, and feeling emotionally pulled to talk to them is not the right reason. I would be much more clear about what do I want from this conversation? What does it mean to me? And why am I coming to it? And, I wouldn't respond. Addicts respond emotionally, partners do too. But in this situation, you made a decision to have no contact. And I think that was probably a good one. And I would want to really talk with someone else about, is this the time or the place that I want to come from inside of me to change that decision that I made? Because coming from an emotional place and feeling, oh, well, they're thinking of me, and that's not a reason to break the agreement that you made with yourself. And maybe the best lesson some of us as addicts can learn is that we're not going to get you back. We're not going to be able to pull you by the string. You're not going to respond the way you did before. Um, and I think you're getting through this without responding for a while might make you stronger, because we're really good at reeling you in. And this may not be the best thing for you to respond, especially in an emotional place. I don't think that's where I would encourage you to respond from. I would pay attention to made me feel ridiculous and humiliated me. I pay a lot of attention to that part.
Yeah.
We got one more question, Tammy.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, when you said I found a bunch of blocked messages, I don't know your technology, but I suspect that you went and unblocked them. So I'm curious about, no, seriously, I'm curious about why
Yeah.
you went to go
Mhm.
look for those, what was going on for you. And unless and until this person has done lots, if over the last 2 years, they've come to
Right,
our treatment program, they've been doing all of the work, then they could be a changed person. But
right.
otherwise, I'm with Dr. Rob. This is manipulative, and, I want you back, and I want you to feel bad, and all of those things, but you will go right back to the same cycle. Okay.
Tammy, there's such a good point, because if someone was writing me and saying, this is what I've been doing, I've been going to these groups and I've been learning these things about myself, and I really think that I hurt you when I was doing this or that. And, I would love to find a way to sit down, have a cup of coffee. That's very different than I miss you, I'm thinking about you. I would want to hear this person taking responsibility for what they're doing to get better, rather than trying to make me feel sorry for them, or like they miss me, or like I need to help them in some way. What are they doing that you can say, okay, that makes me feel good that they're doing those things? That's a whole, and that would, by the way, would pull your emotions in a different way than this, which feels like, oh, they feel so bad and I feel so bad, and let's make it all better, which is not a reason to reconnect.
Yes. So you did this,
Last
and I was
one.
thinking they're just trying to reel you in. So, yeah,
Yeah.
addict here
And you
within the
will
past.
be reeled
Yeah,
in.
yeah, addict here within the
But I'm
past
really
month.
glad you're here. Sorry, Tammy.
Yes.
I'm really glad you're here asking the question instead of
Hmm.
just responding, because you can feel
Yes.
yourself being pulled and you're not. So,
Yeah.
kudos to you. Thanks,
Yeah.
Tammy.
Hang on to the lifeline that betrayed partners and your support system offer you. Okay, we're using all these fishing and analogies right now. Okay, addict here. Within the past month, I've been really trying to take recovery seriously. As I begin to work through the 12 steps, how can I continue to work through these steps as someone who is detached from faith? I've been told that the faith in a higher power can be placed in recovery program itself. Is there another mindset to effectively work through the steps of being involved in faith? Yes. Can I start with this one?
Absolutely.
Okay. So so I still go to 12 step. I have lots of friends who've been in long-term recovery who are non-believers, and they do really well. Um, uh, Good orderly decisions. I was listening to something else the other day, and they were talking about it doesn't matter where, but the another religious foundation said we use the word good instead of God or higher, but because it's God of your understanding and higher power. but but I always say this to addicts: if you think you didn't have a higher power, guess what? Your addiction was your higher power. You did exactly what it demanded of you at any given moment. So just looking for, I'm going to replace that very demanding, very problematic, higher power, with something that is different. Yes, I think, group support is a great, place to start. Just having a belief that these people who have figured out how to do life differently or are on the path to doing life differently, great. But the 12 steps, I get bothered a bit by, people when they say it's religious. It's not. And they were, like, I've read the history of, the 12 steps and the founders and all of that. They were very intentional about making sure that it was open to everyone, including they reached out to other, other people in many, faiths, and they all said, oh yes, this would, be a fit for us as well. So yeah. And here's the thing: getting hooked up on one little aspect of it. I sat in a 12-step meeting not too long ago where someone shared, like, was in a similar situation to you, but she fortunately had the gift of desperation and was willing to just see. And I would invite you to have the gift of desperation and just see. And if your life starts getting better, guess what? Yay, there's a different path for you. But losing out on the ability to live a different life because you're not a person of faith, the program was designed for you. It is absolutely meets everybody exactly where they're at. I hope that helps. So, Dr. Rob, thoughts?
Well, I love your passion, and I appreciate it, Tammy. And Tammy and I have very, very different views on religion. I think we completely align on spirituality, and where we come together is in the hope for healing. I have seen too many hopeless people who healed. And let me just say what my take is on this, which is, they say in 12-step programs basically that whenever two or two or more are gathered, healing can take place. And I know that by myself, I was unable to get well, to change my behavior. I do know that when I walked into a room where there were other people who were struggling, that I was. And so when they say that consider the meetings of the group your higher power, to me that means that there's a power of the group. And by the way I've set up the treatment program, and I say this guys all the time, is, we do good work, we're great, but it's learning to rely on each other. It's being in that house and turning to each other and telling each other the truth. It's going through a shared experience and then being able to talk about it. That is as important as treatment, or it's a part of treatment. So, I wouldn't look at it as a religious thing or something that's necessarily out there. I would just look around the room when I see a bunch of people holding hands and finishing a meeting, and I think, well, that's where it is. That's where it is. It's in this circle is the desire and hope for healing that we all share, and the healing that we see happen. Honestly, that's a miracle. If you looked at my life or my history, what some of the folks I know have been through, and yet they are loving, compassionate people underneath who've been able to put their crap aside and be who they were always meant to be. And so I look at people coming together and finding healing together as something that none of us can do by ourselves. And that's enough. I don't need to read books. I don't need to go to church. I mean, that's, where I come from. But I do need to go to places where I can understand that me by myself alone makes really bad decisions. And with another group of people, I can be guided, and I can help see things in a way that I didn't by myself. And to me, that's spirituality for me. So if that helps
Mhm.
you any.
Yes, and I
So
put in the chat, good orderly direction. I think I might have said good orderly decisions. We make terrible decisions, so it's good orderly direction is another way of saying that. So consider that. But we are way out of time. Thank you, Dr.
I
Alfred,
know
for
I got
hanging
a
in here
doggy I
with
got to
me.
go feed. So,
Yeah,
oh,
I got
absolutely.
to go
Have a
feed
wonderful
me.
holiday tomorrow.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, well, there's that too. And I hope you light up healthy fireworks inside of yourselves and out there in the world. Tammy, we'll see each other soon. Have a good holiday yourself.
Bye.